I didn't have that reference point. Once I had that reference point, the next thought was, how can we help people get to this without the medicine ultimately, right? How do we use the medicine to get to a point where you don't need the medicine to get there, right?
Yeah.
And my process was kind of the opposite of what we're doing now. I'm like, well, you just need to take enough medicine, right? So this becomes like a very accessible piece. And, that wasn't the ideal protocol, right? But again, it was like, okay, there it is again, reference point, reference point, reference point. I'm like, you got to figure out how to find that without that. And then it was like, how do I do that? So that was kind of the beginning of like this curiosity, really, of how do I find that without the medicine? How can I sit in DMV and kind of expand into this more conscious state, find that witness? And I just became obsessed with that, um, which is the irony of enlightenment, right? Or awakening, chasing it,
Yeah.
right? Which I can look back now and say, that's kind of ironic and funny, but that's kind of the early stages, I think, of everybody's, evolution in it. But I think in general, like in the psychedelic world, especially with something as powerful as like 5-MeO, what I've seen is like people will have these profound, beautiful, and sometimes overwhelming experiences, right? And they glimpse something real, like they glimpse again that awakening or liberation or enlightenment, whatever terms. I don't like the word enlightenment for some reason, but those terms, right? And just this something beyond their story, I guess is a good way of putting it, beyond their conditioning. And for a moment, like, you've served us, it's like we witness like this identity starts to soften. And but what we've seen over and over is that experience itself doesn't change someone's life. Right. So again, when I said earlier, I'm like, how did this medicine experience actually help me? Like, how
Hmm.
do I explain that to somebody? And, because again, I've seen people have these experiences and it doesn't necessarily change their life. Within a few weeks, they're back to this baseline personality, so to speak. To me, it's like it opens the door, but like the walking, the integration is like this embodiment that happens afterwards. So how do we help people embody that experience, not intellectualize it? Because I see that a lot. Like, oh, I was one with everything. I felt unconditional love, or that was enlightenment. Cool. You got to look at it, right? And then this fault, like I'm that thing now, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to touch it, you got a brief experience of it, but how do we embody that? And again, I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? This old patterns come back, the nervous system goes back into like this familiar set point. Um, mind tries to turn something sacred, which is another term I'm sitting with, like into a memory, a philosophy, right? Or even a performance. And like, I've said this before, it's like you witness people, and he's Chad, the accountant, big experience, and next thing you know, it's like still that he's just switched one identity for another identity. The new identity just
Right.
happened to have more linen and beads and crystals, right? It's now like I'm a spiritual person. I'm like, you just put yourself in a different prison, right? So you just went from one prison to the next prison. It's a good start. Like you're kind of moving in the direction. Um, so it becomes this performance, right? And people will say, well, why can't I hold on to what I felt? I knew it was true, so why can't I live it? Well, that's what the protocol is about, is like, what are some processes or what are some things that we can implement to take these experiences, over a period of time so they stick, right? Because another term I'm struggling with is like heal, right? Like heal